It was a stormy evening, the kind where rain pelts the streets like shards of glass, and visibility is nearly gone. Sirens wailed in the distance as an ambulance raced through the soaked city roads, its lights reflecting off the slick pavement. But just as it rounded a sharp corner, the driver slammed on the brakes. Standing in the middle of the street, drenched and trembling, was a cream-colored French bulldog. His big, pleading eyes locked onto the flashing lights, refusing to move. The paramedics were stunned. Dogs usually scatter when a vehicle approaches, especially in a storm. But this one had a purpose. Little did they know, what they were about to discover would not only halt their journey, it would change their lives forever. Before we dive into this emotional story, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss more heart-stirring stories like this one. And if this tale touches your heart, share it with friends and family, because sometimes courage comes on 4 paws. The rain had been relentless all evening, drumming against the metal roof of the ambulance like 1,000 impatient fingers. Inside, paramedics Jake Miller and Rosa Alvarez were rushing to a call. A middle-aged man reportedly suffering a severe heart attack across town. Every second mattered. Jake gripped the steering wheel tighter as the ambulance sliced through puddles, sending waves of water against storefront windows. "Visibility's bad, Jake. Slow down on this stretch," Rosa warned, her eyes scanning the nearly empty road ahead. "I know, but we're 5 minutes out." "He doesn't have much time," Jake replied, his voice steady but tense. The sirens screamed, echoing off the wet buildings, until suddenly, a blur of movement caught Jake's attention. He squinted through the windshield. There, in the middle of the lane, was a small figure, low to the ground, unmoving despite the blinding rain. Jake's instincts took over. He slammed the brakes, the tires screeching and skidding before the ambulance came to a jolting stop, just inches away from the animal. "What the?" Rosa muttered, already reaching for her seatbelt. The creature stood frozen, head tilted up toward them, rainwater dripping from its flattened ears. It was a French bulldog, cream-colored, soaked to the bone, and shivering violently. But there was something about the way he stood there that felt intentional, almost desperate. Jake lowered the window just enough to shout, "Hey, get out of the road." But the little dog didn't flinch. Instead, he took 2 slow steps toward the bumper, barking once, then turning his head as if motioning for them to follow. Rosa frowned. "Jake, I think he's trying to lead us somewhere." Jake hesitated. "We don't have time for this." The dog barked again, louder this time, his voice strained over the pounding rain. Then he trotted a few steps away, stopped and looked back at them, his dark eyes locking with theirs. It wasn't the gaze of a stray, it was a plea. Something deep inside Jake shifted. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was something else entirely, but he found himself putting the ambulance in park. "Get the med kit," he told Rosa. "We'll follow him, 2 minutes, that's all." They stepped into the storm, the cold instantly cutting through their uniforms. The French bulldog seemed to brighten at their movement, wagging his little tail and darting forward with quick, determined steps. He led them off the main road, through a narrow alleyway where the water pooled ankle-deep, then around the back of a shuttered laundromat. And then they saw it. Beneath the metal awning, half hidden from the street, was a young woman collapsed against the wall. Her lips were pale, her breath shallow. The dog rushed to her side, nuzzling her face and whining softly. Rosa's training kicked in instantly. "Jake, she's in respiratory distress." They dropped to their knees beside her, the rain now muted under the awning. Jake checked her pulse, it was weak but steady. "She's hypothermic," he said. "We need to get her into the ambulance now." As they lifted her, the French bulldog stayed close, pacing nervously and letting out small, anxious barks. When they placed her on the stretcher inside the ambulance, he hopped in too, curling up near her feet as if refusing to let her go. Jake glanced at Rosa. "Looks like we've got 2 patients tonight." The sirens roared to life again as they sped toward the hospital. But this time, the atmosphere inside the ambulance felt different. They weren't just responding to a call anymore. They were part of a story that had begun in the pouring rain, with a small, determined dog who refused to give up. Little did they know, the events of this night would reveal truths none of them could have imagined. Truths about loyalty, sacrifice, and the mysterious ways lives can be saved. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital cast a pale glow over the emergency bay as Jake and Rosa wheeled the stretcher inside. Nurses swarmed immediately, taking over the woman's care with swift precision. The French Bulldog trotted beside them, refusing to be left behind, his little paws squeaking on the tile floor. "Sir, pets aren't allowed in," a nurse began, but Rosa cut in. "He's part of the reason she's here alive. He stays." Reluctantly, the nurse nodded, and they guided the dog into the corner of the exam room. Jake knelt down, rubbing the water from the dog's back with a towel he'd grabbed from the supply cart. The little creature looked up at him with big, glassy eyes, as if trying to say, "Don't forget her. She's all I've got." The woman's soaked clothing was replaced with warm blankets, and a nasal cannula delivered oxygen to help her breathe. Jake noticed faint bruises along her arms, old ones, not from the fall. Rosa caught his eye, her expression tightening. "Who do you think she is?" Jake asked quietly. "No ID. No phone. Nothing." Rosa's voice was low, but laced with concern. "But that dog, he didn't just find her. He knows her." A doctor entered, checking her vitals. "She's stable for now. Severe hypothermia, mild dehydration. We'll run some tests once she's warmed up." The French Bulldog whimpered, ears flattening, when the woman stirred for the first time. Her eyelids fluttered, and a soft, raspy whisper escaped her lips. "Baxter." Jake leaned closer. "Is that your dog's name?" Her gaze found the little cream-colored bulldog, and for a moment, the room seemed to fade away. Her hand emerged from under the blanket, trembling as Baxter scrambled onto the bed and pressed his face into her palm. Tears slipped from her eyes, mingling with the dampness still clinging to her skin. She didn't speak again, her exhaustion was too great, but the way she clung to him told Jake everything. Whoever she was, this dog was her anchor. Hours later, as the rain eased outside, Jake and Rosa remained in the waiting area, curious and uneasy. Something about the scene didn't sit right. Why had she been lying in an alley on a freezing night? Why had Baxter braved the traffic and the storm to stop them? Around midnight, a security guard approached them. "We found something," he said, holding up a small object wrapped in a damp piece of fabric. It was a locket, tarnished silver, with initials etched into the back, M. Inside the locket was a tiny photograph. Jake recognized the woman instantly, though she looked healthier, smiling in the picture. Beside her was an older man with stern eyes, and in the corner, a much younger Baxter, his fur brighter, his face rounder. Rosa frowned. "Who's the man?" The security guard shrugged. "No idea. But if I were you, I'd be careful. That look in his eyes. It's not the kind of man who lets go easily." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. Something told him that the night's rescue was only the beginning, and the real danger, the reason she was in that alley, was still out there. And as if on cue, Baxter lifted his head from the woman's side and let out a low, uneasy growl, his eyes fixed on the hallway outside. By morning, the storm had passed, but inside St. Mary's Hospital, the tension was thicker than the night's rain. As Jake and Rosa had begun to call her, remained unconscious, her breathing steady but weak. Baxter refused to leave her side, curled up tightly against her hip as if guarding her from unseen threats. Jake sat in the corner, staring at the locket they'd found. The initials were etched with care, but the photograph inside gnawed at his thoughts. That older man, sharp suit, severe expression, radiated control. There was no warmth in his eyes, only ownership. Rosa walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I did some digging," she said quietly. The name on the locket EM might match a missing person report from 2 towns over. Emily Marlowe. Disappeared 3 months ago. Jake took the coffee but didn't drink. "What happened to her?" "That's the thing," Rosa continued, lowering her voice. "Local police closed the case fast. Said she probably left on her own. But there are whispers. Abuse, control, a wealthy family that made sure nothing stuck. Jake glanced at Baxter. And this little guy? He's in the missing person report too. Rosa nodded. She was last seen walking him near her home. Witnesses said her husband. Yeah, that's him in the photo. Wasn't happy about her spending so much time on pointless walks. Jake clenched his jaw. That's not a husband. That's a prison warden. Just then, Emily stirred again. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked around, confusion giving way to fear. Where am I? She whispered. You're safe, Jake assured her. We're paramedics. We found you last night. Or rather, he smiled faintly at Baxter. Baxter found us. Her lips trembled as she reached for her dog. You stopped. Of course we stopped, Rosa said gently. But Emily, how did you end up in that alley? Emily hesitated, eyes darting to the door as if expecting someone to walk in at any moment. I had to run, she said finally. She broke off, pulling Baxter close. He would have hurt Baxter if I stayed. Jake leaned forward. Emily, you don't have to go back to him. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't know him. You don't know what he can do. Before Jake could answer, a deep voice echoed from the hallway. Excuse me. I'm looking for my wife. Jake and Rosa froze. Emily's face went white. Baxter sprang to his feet, teeth bared, a growl rumbling low in his throat. And standing in the doorway was the man from the photograph. Immaculate suit, cold eyes, and a smile that didn't reach his face. Jake stood instantly, placing himself between the doorway and Emily's bed. Rosa subtly shifted to Emily's side, her posture calm but ready. Baxter moved forward, his small frame radiating a fearless defiance, the low growl in his throat never wavering. Mr. Marlowe, the man announced smoothly, eyes sweeping the room without a flicker of warmth. I'll be taking my wife home now. Jake didn't move. She's under medical care. You'll have to speak with hospital staff. A cold smirk tugged at Marlowe's lips. You think a hospital can keep me from my wife? She belongs with me. His gaze landed on Baxter. And that mutt. Baxter's growl deepened, the sound sharp in the sterile air. Emily clutched the dog tighter. Don't touch him, she whispered, her voice breaking. Rosa stepped forward, her tone clipped. Sir, you need to wait outside. The police are on their way. That made Marlowe's smile falter, but only slightly. Police? You have no idea who you're dealing with. His voice was low now, meant only for them. I could make you both disappear before sunset. Jake's jaw tightened. Maybe, but not before everyone in this building hears what you just said. Marlowe's eyes narrowed, calculating. Emily, he called, his voice dripping with control. Come now. Don't make this harder. Emily's hands shook, but she didn't move. Baxter shifted in her lap, positioning himself between her and Marlowe. For a heartbeat, the room was silent, until Baxter suddenly leapt down, barking furiously. His stance was bold, almost daring the man to take a step closer. Jake seized the moment. Emily, do you want to go with him? She shook her head hard, tears streaking her cheeks. No, I'm not going back. That was the breaking point. Rosa hit the call button on the wall, and within seconds, 2 security guards stepped in. Marlowe tried to protest, but they flanked him, guiding him toward the hallway. His voice echoed back, "This isn't over." As the door closed, Emily crumpled against the pillows, Baxter jumping back into her arms. She buried her face in his fur. "He's the only one who ever tried to protect me," she whispered, kissing the top of his head. Jake glanced at Rosa. "Looks like he's still doing it." Rosa smiled faintly. "Best guard dog I've ever seen. No badge required." But they all knew it wasn't over. Marlowe had resources and Emily wasn't truly safe yet. Baxter, however, seemed ready for whatever came next. His eyes stayed fixed on the door, as if daring danger to try again. The storm outside had turned into a steady, cold rain, drumming against the hospital windows. Emily sat upright now, her hands still buried in Baxter's warm fur. Her breathing had slowed, but her eyes still darted to the door every few seconds, as if expecting it to swing open again. Jake pulled a chair closer to her bed. "Emily, we need to talk about what happens next. Marlowe's not going to stop." She swallowed hard, then reached for the small tote bag she'd been clutching when the ambulance first brought her in. From the bottom, she pulled out a flash drive wrapped in plastic. "This is why I can't go back," she said softly. "And this is why Baxter might be in danger too." Rosa stepped forward. "What's on it?" Emily's voice trembled, but her words were steady. "Proof. Every shady deal, every person he's hurt, every illegal shipment. I started gathering it months ago. I was going to take it to the police, but he found out." She stroked Baxter's head. "Baxter was with me when I ran. He distracted him long enough for me to grab my bag and get out the door." Jake exchanged a look with Rosa. "You're telling me your French Bulldog saved your life?" Emily nodded. "He didn't just save me, he gave me the courage to leave. That night, he stood at the top of the stairs, barking so loud it gave me just enough time to slip out the back." Outside, a flash of lightning lit up the room. Rosa lowered her voice. "Emily, if what you have is real, we can protect you, but we need to move fast. Marlowe will realize it's missing." Emily clutched Baxter tighter. "If you protect me, you have to protect him too." "I won't leave without him." Jake smiled faintly. "Something tells me he wouldn't leave without you either." The plan formed quickly. Jake would contact a detective he trusted. Rosa would arrange for Emily to be moved to a safe location, and Baxter would never leave her side. As they prepared to leave, Baxter jumped off the bed, pacing by the door, tail stiff, ears alert. Emily froze. "He only does that when someone's close." Jake's hand went to the handle, but before he could open it, the muffled sound of footsteps echoed down the hall, fast, deliberate. Baxter let out a sharp bark that broke the silence like glass. The danger wasn't gone. It was coming straight for them. The footsteps grew louder, echoing in the narrow hallway outside the hospital room. Emily's pulse spiked, and Baxter's barking deepened into a growl. He planted himself between the door and the bed, small but unshakable, his cream-colored coat glistening in the dim light. Jake moved fast, pressing a finger to his lips. "Lights off now." Rosa flicked the switch, and the room sank into shadows, lit only by the faint glow from the rain-streaked window. The three of them froze as the footsteps stopped right outside. A hand tried the door handle. It rattled, then stopped. A low male voice muttered something they couldn't quite catch. Emily's grip on the flash drive tightened until her knuckles turned white. Baxter's body went rigid, every muscle poised to spring. The voice faded down the hall, but Jake didn't relax. "That's not hospital staff," he whispered. "We move. Now." Rosa took Emily's arm while Jake eased the door open just enough to scan the corridor. Empty for the moment, they slipped out, keeping close to the wall. Baxter padded silently beside Emily, occasionally glancing behind them as if to keep watch. By the time they reached the emergency exit, the sound of boots pounding against tile echoed again, this time closer, faster. Jake shoved the door open, and they were hit by a wall of cold rain. Outside, the parking lot shimmered under the orange glow of the streetlights. Rain hammered the asphalt, bouncing off puddles. Rosa guided Emily toward an unmarked sedan parked near the far end, but a dark SUV screeched into the lot from the opposite side. "They found us!" Rosa shouted over the downpour. Before anyone could react, Baxter bolted forward, barking like a siren. He darted directly into the SUV's path, forcing the driver to slam on the brakes. The tires skidded, splashing sheets of water into the air. "Baxter!" Emily cried, her heart in her throat. But the little bulldog wasn't stopping. He danced just out of reach, keeping the SUV stuck in place as Jake and Rosa hustled Emily into the sedan. The moment the passenger door shut, Baxter sprinted back, launching himself into Emily's lap just as Jake floored the gas. The sedan fishtailed before gaining traction, racing toward the exit. In the rearview mirror, headlights closed in fast. Jake took a hard right, the wipers barely keeping up with the torrent of rain. Streets blurred past, darkened houses, flickering street lamps, the occasional neon sign. Baxter didn't move from Emily's lap. His eyes stayed locked on the rear window, ears twitching with every sound. Emily held him close, whispering, "You saved us again, boy." But they weren't safe yet. The SUV was still behind them, its headlights cutting through the rain like knives. "Hang on," Jake said, his voice tight. "This is going to get rough." The chase was far from over. Jake's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as the sedan tore through the wet streets. The SUV stayed on them, its engine growling like a predator refusing to let go. Emily could feel Baxter's steady heartbeat against her chest, the little bulldog refusing to move, almost as if he understood the danger and was standing guard even from her lap. Rosa glanced back at the headlights closing in. "We won't outrun them forever. We need to make them slip." Jake's eyes narrowed. "Hold on." He cut sharply onto an unlit service road, tires spraying water in arcs. The SUV followed, its driver confident. But Jake knew these back roads better than most. His cousin worked municipal maintenance here, and he remembered something crucial. A steep drainage slope ahead, slick as ice in heavy rain. He gunned the engine, aiming for the narrow strip of solid pavement, while the SUV, in its hurry, swerved slightly off course. The effect was instant. The SUV's rear fishtailed, its tires failing to grip the waterlogged slope. With a metallic screech, it slid sideways and slammed into the guardrail, sparks cutting through the night before it came to a jarring stop. Emily let out a shaky breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Rosa called 911 immediately, relaying their location and the accident. Within minutes, police arrived, and the truth unfolded quickly. The man in the SUV, none other than Marlowe, was armed, wet, and furious. In his possession was a burner phone full of threats and messages proving his intent to silence Emily. He was taken away in handcuffs, glaring through the rain at the group, but Baxter's growl from the car window made him turn away. Inside the warmth of the sedan, Emily wrapped her arms around the bulldog. "You didn't just stop an ambulance today," she whispered, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. "You stopped a man who thought fear could control everything." Over the next few days, Emily's testimony, along with the flash drive, helped dismantle one of the city's most corrupt networks. Jake was cleared of all suspicion. Rosa's rescue organization received new funding from donations pouring in after the news broke, and Baxter became a local hero. A news crew filmed Emily walking with him outside the shelter where they first met. "So, is he staying with you?" the reporter asked. Emily smiled, looking down at the little cream-colored bulldog trotting proudly at her side. "He's not staying with me," she said softly. "I'm staying with him. Wherever he goes, I go." Baxter barked once, almost as if to seal the deal. The cameras caught the moment. A survivor and her fearless friend, both having faced storms far worse than the rain that night. And as the segment aired, countless people were reminded that loyalty, courage, and love can come in the smallest, most unexpected packages. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who believes in the unbreakable bond between a human and a dog. Together, let's keep telling stories that prove bravery comes in all shapes and sizes.